Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today I'm going to make a side fanfold shirt and I'm going to incline ice dye it. I'm beginning with the shirt that's prepped like normal and I have it turned inside out. To begin, I want to find the middle of the area between the armpit and the hem of the shirt. So to do that, I'm going to fold the hem up to the armpit and I'm going to use a washable marker to make a mark right there on that spot. I'd like to start the fanfold a little above the middle though, so I'm going to find an area where I want to start the fanfold, make a mark there, and then using the washable marker and a piece of kite string, I'm going to draw an arc on the shirt. Now I'm going to fanfold this line. So normally whenever I do side fan folds that I'm going to incline ice dye, I usually tie them up with kite string. But this time I want to do something a little bit different, so I'm going to tie the shirt with Sinew. The Sinew is wax coated, so any of the areas that I tie really tightly with the Sinew, it's not going to allow the dye underneath that area, and that spot on the shirt should remain white. So I'm going to wrap the Sinew around a couple times, and then I'm going to very slowly and gently pull it tight. I'm placing my hand flat on the Sinew line as I begin pulling it tight because I don't want the folds to pop up and bubble up right in the middle. After I went around a couple times and pulled it tight, I went ahead and repeated this process on this one line a few more times because I want this to be a little more defined than the rest of the lines in the shirt. I'm going to continue fan folding this shirt on either side of this line and add in more Sinew lines. I didn't measure the distance between each of my Sinew lines, but you can do that if you'd prefer. You can either make them all the same distance apart from each other or make them a little bit more random. You can do whatever you would prefer to do on your shirt. Most of the shirt is already tied, but I have just a small area down at the end, which the very end portion is one of the sleeves of the shirt. So to go ahead and make this a little bit easier to apply the dye to, I'm going to take this part of the sleeve that you see hanging down, I'm going to fan fold it, and then I'm going to fold it up into the rest of the shirt. You can go ahead and leave it hanging down and tie it by itself, but when I fold it up into the rest of the shirt, it's going to make this section just about the same size as the other sections in the main portion of this shirt. It's just a personal preference. You can do whatever you'd like to do. Now, I have quite a few more shirts that I'm going to fold today, so I'm going to go ahead and set this one aside and allow it to dry. I've pulled several shades of blue and purple dye to use on this shirt. To incline this shirt, I'm going to place it inside of a piece of vinyl guttering, and for now I'm just going to leave the guttering flat on my table. I'm going to use a piece of kite string and tie it up around one of these sinew lines, and then use a clip to clip it to the very end of the guttering. That way the shirt won't slide down below the bottom of the guttering once it's inclined. To apply the dye, I'm going to add a different dye color to each one of the sinew sections. I'm starting with Ice Blue from Dharma, followed by Grape from Custom Colors. Next, I'm using Periwinkle from Dharma, I'm going to use Lavender from Dharma, the next color is Sky Blue from Grateful Dyes, and the final color is Velvet Orchid from Dye Spin. I still have quite a few more sections left on the shirt, so I'm just going to repeat this dye pattern down the rest of the shirt. Now I'm going to add an additional sprinkle of soda ash over the top of the dye. I'm doing this to make sure that when all the ice melts and runs through the shirt, that it doesn't rinse out all the soda ash that I have in the shirt from the soaking process. And now I'm going to layer the ice on the shirt. I'm going to go ahead and put the ice on the shirt while the shirt is flat on the table. I'll incline it in just a few minutes. To incline the shirt, I'm going to place one end of this guttering inside of a plastic container or tote. Mine has pretty large sides, so it places the shirt at about a 45-degree incline. I'm going to add a little additional ice, and then I'm going to set the shirt aside and allow all the ice to melt. After all the ice melted, I came back and checked the shirt, and there was still just a little bit of undissolved dye left sitting on top, so I added another layer of ice and left the shirt alone to process again. After the second layer of ice melted, I ended up leaving the shirt for about 3 days. You don't need to leave it that long, but I would suggest leaving it at least 24 hours. To rinse the shirt, I took it to my utility sink and I began rinsing it in cold water. I rinse in cold water to rinse out any of the soda ash that's left remaining in the shirt. After rinsing for a while in cold water, I went ahead and untied the shirt and gradually warmed the water up to hot and rinsed the shirt in hot water to rinse out any excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. As you can see, there's quite a bit of excess purple being rinsed out of this shirt, so instead of just continuing to rinse for a long time, I went ahead and ran some hot water in my utility sink, added just a little bit of Blue Dawn dish detergent into the water, and I just allowed the shirt to soak. I changed the water out a couple of times and continued the soaking process until the water was almost clear. Then I put the shirt into my washing machine and I washed it using a hot water cycle and a little bit of Dharma's textile detergent. Then after the shirt was washed and dried, this is what it looks like. Okay, so what do you guys think? I really like this shirt. I like the purple and blue together. I think they look really pretty next to each other. And if you'll look on the side of the shirt where I put that initial sinew line, you can really see how it's more pronounced than on the rest of the shirt. That's kind of the look that I was going for. I wanted that initial line to stand out just a little bit, and it does. In fact, I can't really see a lot of the other sinew lines on the shirt. I mean, I can see, the indentations of them, but they're not as pronounced, and the shirt underneath them is not white on all of the sinew lines. I pulled the sinew pretty tight, but I incline ice dyed the shirt, and so I really didn't expect the sinew to stop all the dye from moving down the shirt. This was actually kind of an experiment to see whether or not it would affect it. And I think that the dye streaks going down the shirt are not as long. The dye didn't move quite as far down the shirt as it does whenever I just use kite string. And it didn't travel the same channels that it normally does. When I do a shirt where I use kite string instead of sinew, it follows those fan folds all the way down the shirt and makes long streaks of dye down the shirt. So for me, when I tied this shirt with sinew instead of kite string, it didn't stop the dye moving. It just stopped the dye moving as far down the shirt as it would have if I would have just used kite string. If you're curious about what some of the kite string inclines look like, I have a whole bunch of them on my YouTube channel, and you can just go to the playlist for ice dye or for fan folds. I do like the effect though that the sinew gave on the side of the shirt, right where I initially tied the lines and going out a little ways. I think that looks very much like a mandala, especially where the dark velvet orchid meets up with the sky blue. How those lines kind of streak out, I think that's a really cool effect. You can see it really well from the side view. So overall, I really like the shirt. I think it turned out looking really cool, and I think it does have a different effect than just using kite string. It's not a huge difference, but I do think it is a little bit different. I just think it's fun to try something new and see what happens. And I'm pretty happy with the way this one turned out. But what do you guys think? Drop me a comment down below and let me know. And I sure would appreciate it if you would like my video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.